Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's your favorite paranormal investigator. My name is Tim Sudano. This is Paranormal Insight, and today we're going to be talking about aliens once again. This time we're going to explore the hypno-regression aspect of things. Joe Montaldo was scheduled to be on the show. I think he's running a little behind, so he may join us a bit later, with any luck. Let me get my little message machine up here real quick. Okay. So, once again, welcome to the show. You got just me, just for now. Joe should be along shortly. He asked for a reminder. I sent him one, but who knows? Big hello to Patsy and Heidi. Welcome to the chat. Thanks for showing up and thanks for joining us. I love having you here. That's it. I'm sorry. I thought I saw someone else chime in on the chat, but I don't yet. So let's do a very, very quick review how this whole conversation kind of started. Let me share my stuff here real quick. That one. Let me go back to the beginning. All right. Okay, so as I share my little dream with you once again. So I had this dream about an abduction. It started out in this little town, and in this little desert town there was a UFO flap, but it was more than a flap. It's like you could practically set your watch to how often UFOs showed up in this town. It's a regular thing. I don't know where in the desert exactly. I don't know what state. It could have been California. We have our share of deserts here in the state too. It could have been Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. Again, not sure. But classic little desert town. And in this desert town, there's a specific hot spot. And that is, it's not transitioning. There we go. That is this little baseball field. Abandoned. Little league field. I mean, just abandoned. And for whatever reason, again, these images are from AI. So they decided to put words on the thing there. Ignore that part. At the back of this little stadium is, believe it or not, a hotel. And if you've ever been to, I think it's called Rogers Field in Canada, same basic idea. There's a hotel as the backstop wall, and you can lay out and watch the game live if you don't have tickets to whatever. It's fun for people who go to this thing. Anyway, so there's a little league version of this decidedly aged hotel, and I have an interview with this mother-daughter team, not team, but mother-daughter duo who are experiencers. They've been abducted several times. They've seen each other on medical tables and in their experiences. And I think they had hypno-regression in my dream. And that's how they remembered this stuff. And they're constantly being abducted. And so they say, and tonight it's going to happen. We can feel it when it's about to happen. So I get a hotel room, and this is a little bit dark, but it's a hotel room in the corner with two, larger windows on either wall. And I suddenly get a phone call on my cell phone. And I have a team with me, but I am unaware of who these people really are. I know who my team is in real life with Scary, but for some reason, they're not even in my periphery, except for this phone call. Tim, look outside. They're here. And hey, look at that. I goofed. And the next thing I know is these two craft are outside my window. And let me introduce you to these players. One's this 30, 40 foot around gear-shaped, gear-edged thing. And oddly enough, they have cameras with a little spotlight. Exactly in this configuration, sitting on top of this otherwise pork pie hat-shaped UFO. And, which I found kind of odd. And then this has a little brother, and little brother is, say, 6 to 8 feet around at the base, also with the camera and light on top. And they're looking at me like this in my window. And I have these curtains that are kind of translucent or diffused, and you can see through them, but not too clearly. Anyway, that's the only thing protecting me from their view. And then the little one here, this guy, if you can see my cursor, uses a spotlight, and he pans across, and with his spotlight, the curtain opens. And there was such a strong electromagnetic push, like a sweeping, I could feel the beams, what I'm trying to say. And that was disturbing. I'm kind of in real life, I'm really sensitive to electromagnetic radiation, or, emanations anyway. Fields. EMF, that's what it's called. Electromagnetic field. And the next moment, I'm aware that I'm floating. I am levitating off the ground, slowly going higher and higher and higher, and I just have a simple little hi again for these guys. And then I have a sensation of going up, and then suddenly, in the next moment, and this is as I'm waking, I'm aware of this electrical kind of chill. I don't know, like you're being electrocuted, very slow motion, but it doesn't hurt. It's more like a chill, like the after effect of getting a shock, if you've ever been shocked. And it travels so linearly from the very top of my head all the way down to my feet, and it was a bizarre sensation, very linear, very electronic, even. If you want to call it something, it's kind of like beam me in, but they kind of scan you in, like I was reprinted or something. It's a very strange sensation to describe. But and as I'm waking up, I feel like the lower, from about my waist down, I feel the rest of it complete, and I'm waking up. I'm on the cusp of consciousness at this point, and my eyes open. I'm in my room, and I sit there for a second. I look around. Nothing out of the ordinary, and that's when I wake up completely. That's when I'm fully awake. After that sensation subsides, but I was aware of the sensation creeping down my waist as my eyes started to open. So that was a weird dream. And that led Joe and I to kind of talk about our alien friends, starting with the Nordics, or the and I don't know why AI went strictly with women in this, but it did. There's male Nordics described by abductees as well. But we started talking about different aliens and stuff like that, and who's involved, who the major players are in this alien/conspiracy. It's not really a conspiracy, alien/UFO conspiracy. We also have the reptilians. Joe says they're good guys. Others say they're bad guys. And I don't know. Apparently the lizard guys, according to him, and his, excuse me, myriad reports from abductees in the ICAR network, there are more, there's a lot of, we're talking about all over the country, if not all over the world, these reports coming into him saying the lizard guys are good guys. Okay, I'm cool with that. There's, back in the 20s or 30s, the LA Times reported lizard creatures in the sewers, and there was even an expedition to go check it out because people kept saying, hey, there's giant people, there's lizard, like bipedal lizards, like they were rolling around on all fours sometimes, but they're not gators. They kind of look like these guys. Kinda. Very, very, very kinda. But I digress. And then we also talked a little bit about the Greys, who are kind of functioning as intermediaries to one degree or another between not only the human race and the alien galactic federation, if you want to call it that, but other aliens out there. But they're also part of the abduction scenario, but not always. There's insect-like people, okay, along with our lizard and Nordic friends here. There's also, and it's these are the ones I personally experienced in Santa Cruz in 2002. And I say experience, it was at a distance, but it was unmistakable. And that's these guys. These are the tall whites as described by Charles Hall. And this is from the cover of his book. And I want you to take a special note of, using the wrong place, of the hands over here on the adult. Look at the size of those fingers. Those things are long, and the ones on both the little one and the mother, presumably, I saw also very long, twice my finger. Yeah. Heidi has an interesting introspection here. Let me put it up for everyone to take a look at here. Heidi says, when thinking of bad and versus good, I immediately think of the need for balance. You're not wrong. In fact, other abductees and experiencers I've had on the show would speak to that and do speak to that. So there's good and bad in everybody, I guess. And there's some real buttheads out there in the universe, and there's some real awesome people out there in the universe. And I think that's kind of where we have to come from. So, I don't know. We have our fictions. We have, let me go here. So, like I said, we have our fictions. We have our stories. And we have, not only stories handed down through oral tradition, but stories handed down through written tradition as well, going way, way, way back. And I'm talking Sumerians, one of the first writing systems we had on this planet. Or is it? Because then you can talk about Göbekli Tepe and how that's like precedes everything by 10,000, 15, 25,000 years. It's a bit of a headache, really. Oh, and then you could talk, anyway, the whole Terran thing, Atlantis, Lemuria, all that stuff comes into play. But let's get back to aliens here real quick. When it comes to aliens and alien experiences and or interactions with beings that were, at least in ancient times, considered gods, I think we could start with the Sumerians and the Anunnaki and all those guys, and kind of draw an inference of where things are going, because we look at carvings of these creatures. I'm following Michelle's example. She said, don't say creatures, Tim, say entities or beings. Okay, beings. Done. So these beings, these godlike beings, were depicted with wings. A lot. Like 4 of them. Which, I don't know, gives me pause, because what else we know that has wings? We have angels, and even demons to a degree. Some of their depictions in their more monstrous form, I guess we'll say, have them with bat-like wings or something along those lines. But are these interpretations? Possibly. I find it hard to believe that an entire people would go so far, and let's take in ancient India, for example, would go so far as to carve these things out of stone, or what have you, or to one degree or another, where they had an advanced technology to do so, or very meticulous with a hammer and chisels. And there are stonemasons today that are surprisingly awesome. But it doesn't matter the method. They still created these vast stories in stone to present a narrative. Whether that's historical or fictional or mythological kind of remains to be seen. But I would... Oh, by the way, you're entirely welcome, Heidi. But I would say even that's kind of irrelevant. The fact that these stories were told at all about these extra people, these extra dimensional people, and they all say basically the same thing. And we've explored this on the show before. Ancient Ireland, the Terra de Danann, I'm sorry, I'm messing up the name. The glowing people, not unlike these white folks here. I said white folks. Wow. What I meant to say was the tall white folks here. What is no exception. The white folks. Wow. But the tall whites are also described as being the glowing ones. So we might be looking at these individuals in history, but again, I'm going off topic. We've had globally in our ancient past. These creatures described and, shown to us in one degree or another with regard to what they looked like potentially. That also kind of goes to another thing. I want to show you, this is Charles Hall's tall whites that he interacted with, and very close to the ones I saw, but I want to point something out here. If you look closely, if I can have you zoom in with the full screen right here, and look at this person's nose. See that wide bit there? I saw that as well. And I want to give you another perspective of that. This is a still from a video. Someone did a 3D rendering. And this isn't too far off. Look at the wide nose. They've paid attention to the description. They really put this together quite well. Pardon me. So what we have here is at least one, and if you include me, two different sources saying that these creatures exist for sure. Whether you choose to believe Charles Hall and myself is entirely up to you. I did know the tall... Okay. Oh, yeah. Heidi has a pretty good question about these guys, and I'll put that up, too. Let's see here. I didn't know the tall whites were known to glow. Yeah, they're called the illuminated ones, and the glowing ones, as this little animation still says. Could they be perceived as light beings? Yeah, well, you could say that. I mean, it wouldn't be beyond... Darn, I'm so... Excuse me. It wouldn't be beyond the pale to say yes. I mean, if they glow, technically, yeah, light beings. Are the Nordics also light beings? It depends. If you talk about, and this is where it also gets weird and we kind of go off topic to a degree, but if we take some of the Nordic sightings and experiences and what have you, some of them have been known to be, yes, glowy. Glowy. Hey, there's a new term for you. But yeah, they seem to luminesce in their own right. Are they light beings as in a spiritual sense? Like they're suddenly going from an energy-based existence to a more corporeal existence, with still favoring that energy-based them? Wow, I'm coming up with all kinds of weird terminology today. But I'm glad you like glowy. That's awesome. Yes, you could say that. For me, when I hear light beings, I think of something more ethereal versus something more corporeal. But that's my interpretation. When I say light beings, I'm thinking of visions of angels or saints or Jesus or whoever else is shown. I think Buddha showed up to a few people at one point. But whoever it is in whatever religion or whatever spiritual aspect you seem to be, you are in favor of, that for me as an interpretation, I see light beings as being more ethereal, spiritual, other dimensional even to a degree. So Glowy's getting a thumbs up from the chat. That's thanks. Yeah. Oh, interesting. I want to share that, Heidi, if I may. I'm going to share that. So Heidi says, I have seen illuminating beings outside my windows through the security cameras, and I've been wondering what and why they're here. They like you. Honestly, that could be something else. Yeah, almost empty. The light beings would be... Okay, so let me ask you, Heidi, this. Are your light beings humanoid in shape? Are they more three-dimensional than two-dimensional, like, say, a shimmer or a ghost or something like that? Why don't you go ahead and answer it in the chat, if you would, please. And as we wait for her, we will go back to my thing briefly. And let's put, geez, Tim, you cannot operate the computer today, can you? There we go. So this is my tall white experience. I would not consider this person a light being. I did not see glowy people in my experience. And Charles Hall, to my knowledge, also did not describe these creatures as glowing. So they were physical, tangible in people. You know, they may have been able to dip in and out of a dimension or a phase into another dimension, if you prefer, where they could be rendered tangibly and visually invisible or untouchable. But I mean, that's just them skipping around in just slightly out of phase with us. And if you have a more advanced technology, we've explored this in our science fictions, that's entirely possible. Heidi responded, they're lighted brightly and human-shaped and three-dimensional. Okay. My next question for you, Heidi, is, are they just standing there, or do they interact with you? I will now wait for her response. Getting back to my thing. So we have the tall white people here. And yeah, the bridge of the nose. I forgot that detail usually, but oh my gosh, when I saw this video and then looked at Charles Hall's rendition again, yeah, I forgot about the bridge of the nose. That's exactly what I saw. Interesting stuff. But let's get back to what Heidi said. Oh, she hasn't written anything yet. So sorry. But by and large, we're supposed to talk about hypnoregression. My question for Joe, who has yet to show up, by the way, has nothing from him yet either. If anyone has a way to light a fire under Joe, please do so. Okay, let's go back to Heidi's little thing here, whether or not we're interacting with light beings. No interaction, but seem to be peering into your windows. Well, that's not creepy at all. By the sense I get from them, they're out to look, they overlook on me, maybe protectively. You know, Joe himself has said that the alien abductors and his experience of those he documented through ICAR and MUFON, by the way, he was part of that organization initially, that these aliens tend to look on us as pets. Yeah, I'm a pet to somebody, or potentially. I don't think I'm an abductee, but Joe says I might be, but I don't know. But those who are abductees are pets. Take that as what you will, but if you're having a more enlightened experience in your, wherever you're at, I mean, you're in Colorado, I think you said, Heidi. But, I mean, I don't know, if you're on a path to a better self, give me a sec. If you're, pardon me, if you're on a path to a better self and you're seeking enlightenment, you may be opening the old third eye, and therefore being allowed to see more. I have told the story before where I was really getting heavy into the paranormal investigation game. This is like the first month I tried getting, I was taking on cases and stuff, and I realized I had a detrimental fear of the dead, of ghosts, because I'm thinking horror movie ghosts with, scars of slashes and whatever happened to them, some horrible accident, and are maimed, and like half their decrepit bodies are hanging around, and half cut in half and sliced this and cut that and bleeding and horrible stuff like that. And while some of those images do happen to people, it's mostly the psychics who are seeing like the damage these people took on. Regular folk like me, I saw a ghost when I was 2. I think I told this way early on in my show. Like in the first few episodes, I think. When I was like, I wasn't 2. I was 3 or 4. And I saw a full-bodied apparition. I mean, every bit, like kind of similar to what Heidi described, but no glow. No glowy. To carry on the thing. But this woman, and I made her out to be a stewardess. She had a skirt and a vest and something like a long sleeve shirt underneath, or maybe, I can't remember, but it looked like a uniform. And stewardess thing, no hat, which was interesting, but she had a blonde, yeah, not too far off what we see here. Okay, you see that haircut this one's rocking? You're not too far off from that. The tall one. You can't see my cursor, can you? Okay, this one, this tall one here. You see that haircut there? Kind of rocking that, but a little more bouncy. Now it sounds like I'm trying to shampoo commercial. Anyway, she walks in and somehow turned on the living room light, which was beyond my reach because I was 4, and back in the older building codes, the light switches were 4 foot off the ground. They lowered that sense so kids could interact with them, but this is back in the 70s when I was very little, not to date myself, but I don't care. So I couldn't even reach the light switch, but for jumping, and there's no reason for me to run now, turn on the light switch and run back when I get woken up. Anyway, sorry, I'm not over-explaining the circumstances here. But this being, yes, I used the right word. Michelle would be quite proud of me. This being presented as a full-bodied apparition, head to toe. I could describe her outfit and her demeanor, her face, her complexion, the whole thing. And I think maybe she had a tinge of transparency to her, but not really. She scared the crap out of me because she just walked in and yelled at me, hands on hips, and started yelling at me, but there was no voice, no words. Exactly like that. So, very animated, very angry, pissed off that I was there apparently. And then, anyway, so you've all heard that story before. If I need to go into it later, maybe I'll tell it on a different episode. But that creature did not glow. And I said creature again. Damn, no, bad Tim. That being did not glow as the ones Heidi is experiencing. And even seeing on her security cameras, which is really, really cool. Record that, Heidi. I hope you keep that on saved somewhere. In fact, share it with me if you can. I'll send you my contact info if you don't already have it. But let's get back into aliens and stuff. So the question I originally wanted to pose before Joe didn't show up, not to throw Joe under the bus, but he should have been here by now. So, if he wants to join late, he's more than welcome to. I will put that in a message to him. Okay. Hopefully he'll think. Join late if you want. If you can. Okay. He has that message. Hopefully he'll show up. So here's my alien, guys. I'm sorry, this is not the most professional package, but it's easier for me to navigate this way. So let's talk about our aliens and UFOs and all that fun stuff. So while we have typically, in particular, these great guys in our forefront as what an alien is, and we've seen them portrayed and how else should I put this? Well, okay, portrayed in everything. Our films, our television, our books. Magazine articles. There's whole magazines, at least there used to be, whole magazines devoted to the UFO phenomena and alien phenomena. And what we have is, I did it again, add to the stage. Yeah, there we go. Is these creatures more or less in the forefront. Close Encounters of the Third Kind comes to mind, especially with this tall guy right here. And there's varying types of these gray individuals. But, I mean, if you've ever seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you will be... You might find it a little laughable, actually, because it's pretty obvious they had little kids running around in the alien outfits, because they were the right height, about 3 or 4 foot tall, and hang around Richard Dreyfuss and all that fun stuff. But they had one puppet that was closer to this fella here, and he was stop motion for the most part, in the close-ups, and he had a weird face that reminded me of something called a T-37B or something like that. And I'm not talking about the jet. I'm talking about this android-like creature that resembles a gray, as described by Elena Danan, and others, experiencers and abductees. So keep that in mind. I found that kind of fascinating. Like, only the android could really communicate. And the android was weird because he was lanky and just nothing but legs. Kind of looked like a daddy long legs and kind of resembled this taller one back here. But in our fictions, movies and television and magazines and the whole thing, we have seen these guys up front. When do lizards really come into play? I'm not too sure. But they come into play about, and they don't quite look like this. They're a little bulkier, kind of like the Gorn, if you're a Star Trek fan at all. They kind of look like the Gorn. And I don't mean Strange New Worlds Gorn. I'm talking TOS Gorn. I'll leave you to look that one up. And Heidi's willing to share her stuff with me, which is great. I can't wait to get that. I might feature that on the next show or two. But we have these guys, and then the Nordics really kind of came into play a little bit later on, in the alien UFO story. And Sherry's here. Hey, Sherry, how's it going? Sherry's joined us in the chat. Welcome. And anyway, so these guys came in roughly around the same time as the lizard people, but I mean, they were always there to one degree or another. Our Sumerian gods didn't quite look like this, but they were humanoid for sure. They didn't look like these guys, and they didn't look like these guys. They look a little more like these guys. At least that's how we perceive them. You could go into a whole thing about hypnosis and stuff like that. In fact, that's where we kind of were. That's what started this episode. We were going to talk about hypnoregression. So let's briefly touch on that. And I don't have a slide for it, so you just have to deal with my beautiful mug. I tease. But with regard to the work at ICAR, MUFON, and others who have done hypnoregression for their abductee, I'll call them clients. I'm going to put that in quotes because I can't really say if they're clients or not. I just realized I've had my fan on to the background. It's really hot here. So if there's a hum on the mic, my apologies. It is just too hot not to have it on, though. Anyway, so with regard to hypnoregression, hypnoregression, my question for Joe was, and he touched on this in the last episode, but I mean, we barely got into it. When is hypnoregression a benefit versus being a playground for the mind to create whatever they want? To fill in blanks, I guess, is a better way to put that. And is that what we're dealing with? According to Joe, no. Not with regard to his experiences and those he's put under, being a pro at that type of thing as he is. So his immediate response was no, but I still have the question about whether his technique is newer or not, and I think it is, compared to, say, older hypno-regressive therapy. What are we? I'm sorry. I just altered my. There I am. I'm back. Minor technical issue on my end. Let's. What's the validity of hypno-regression and what is happening to the patient who is being forced to relive certain memories that they may have oppressed? Now, this hypno-regression has been used for criminal cases. Hypno-regression has been used for personal growth. Hypno-regression has been used for several different things, including mostly for coping tools, for various traumas before the UFO and alien thing even entered into anyone's thought. Oh, well, hey, we use it to help these people. Maybe we can help these abductee people and find out if they're cuckoo or not. I'm sorry. I shouldn't use cuckoo, but I did. My apologies. But, I mean, you want to see if you're dealing with the real deal. I guess that's chiefly it. You want to see if you're going to take this person's word for what it is. I mean, it's fact, as fact. So, let me give you an example. Betty and Barney Hill. Joe talked about this at length on my show. Say about 5, 6, maybe more, a few episodes back. And briefly we touched on it last week. But there's two varying experiences between Betty Hill and Barney Hill. Betty was calm. Now, the hypnotherapist usually says, be calm, just relax, you're a third-person observer. Tell me what you see. And as she recounts stuff, she's kind of blasé about it, to be honest. Look, there's a funny little sphere over there. Yeah, Barney doesn't like him. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's landing. How about that? Yeah, Barney's starting to freak out a little bit. And he doesn't like him. He doesn't want them to touch him. Oh, look, they kind of look like us. Yeah, humanoid-ish, kind of. That's kind of cool. I mean, seriously, if you listen to her tapes, she gets a little worried at one point or another, like she doesn't want to go onto the ship initially, but she describes weird things when she gets onto the ship. Now, she and Barney describe the same creatures, and they are the little gray folk we keep seeing. And I'll show you them again. Those are the ladies. Okay, there we go. These guys. Ish. Kind of. Not quite, but not far off. And, yeah. And, that's kind of where the similarities end, because Betty's just kind of calm, blasé, and when she asks about maps of the stars, and this is kind of where my questioning really kind of starts, and when it comes to hypnoregression. Betty describes a pull-down map like you would find on a boat or a ship, but star maps instead of, maps of the islands or Earth or whatever. But pull-down maps. I would find it very interesting that aliens had pull-down maps if they're advanced enough to make use of pretty advanced technology, especially when it comes to lifting cars and people and stuff with a beam. And one could argue and have argued. Oh, Wood Rider joined us from Florida. Hey, welcome, Wood Rider. Wood Riders. I'm sorry, my client. I think I need a new prescription. And welcome to the chat, by the way. But okay, so my question, my brain starts getting a little, my detective brain, I'll say, gets a little befuddled when it comes to certain things, what Betty's described versus Barney, who said, no, this was vastly advanced and highly technological. Now, one could ask the question, and I really wish Joe was here to give his input. One could say that the hypnosis was stronger if there was a hypnotic component to their experience. The hypnosis was stronger with Barney than with Betty. Betty can kind of see through their BS and what she was told she was seeing. And that has been a long-held contention that these two were hypnotized and the experiences they experienced were not real. However, we have the differential again between Betty and Barney's experiences, where Betty's cool as a cucumber, or calm as a cucumber. They're both work. And then Barney, who has these fits. I mean, there's a moment where he freaks out and his hypnotherapist has to bring him down. That came out wrong, but has to calm him down. Yeah, there's the word. Has to, like, okay, we're coming back. You're back to normal. You're all safe. Yada yada. And we've seen both the movie depiction. By the way, kudos to the actors for really getting into the roles, but I don't think that thing was very well written. I'm talking about the film that talks about the Betty and Barney Hill case, where with voice of Darth Vader. I'm just blanked on his name, on my favorite actor. That's horrible. If anyone knows in the chat that guy's name, please. I feel, oh man, I'm a sci-fi nerd too, and that just hurts. I can't think of his name all of a sudden. The guy who voiced Darth Vader and had that great booming voice. Oh man, that hurts my feelings. Anyway, so it wasn't too well written. Didn't really put them in the best light, and didn't really explore the issue that much. Of course, the whole thing was shot in the 70s, and maybe that's an excuse, maybe it isn't. But at the same time, let's get back to the case, and case as of hypnoregression. I'm going to tell you another story. So Benny, Barney, Hill are kind of 50-50 for me. Barney seemed to experience things more readily as a person would, who was deathly afraid of alien visitors coming and poking around in their body and mind. Betty kind of was like, that's kind of neat. There was this one point where she starts asking, what color is your sun? Ours is yellow. It isn't, by the way. It's a white dwarf, I think. But I think it's classified as a yellow dwarf, but I don't think it is. I think it was reclassified as a white dwarf. I digress. Back to the case. I keep doing that. Bad Tim. Let me tell this other story. I read this, and this is not my story. This is someone else's story taken from a book I read, which was published in the early 70s, of a hypnotherapist who dealt with one of the first batch, I guess, of alien abductees. And I hate the advertisers in the chat. Anyway, one of these stories that stood out the most to me because it was the most fantastical and had, I don't know, it kind of appealed to my sci-fi nerd brain. Where there's this fella, I think he's a mechanic or something like that, something real basic, blue collar, salt of the earth guy, and he keeps having these weird experiences where he's sleepwalking, and it's getting more and more dangerous. At first he's across the room in his bedroom. Then he's across the house when he wakes up. And then he's outside when he wakes up. Then he's 2-3 miles down the road when he wakes up. And he says, "What is going on with me? Something's obviously wrong. I gotta talk to somebody." And so he talks to a hypnotherapist, puts him under. And after a few sessions, this is the story that is built. The hypnotherapist asks, okay, take me back through your childhood. And he does. He recounts a relatively normal upbringing for someone who came up in the 20s and 30s in America, in the Midwest. I think he may have dealt with the Dust Bowl situation. I can't really recall. I think he was a World War II vet. I may be wrong about that. Don't quote me. But, and don't ask me to give you the book title because it eludes me. And I've done search after search for this book, and I've come up with nothing. So there you have it. But the story is, the hypnotherapist is, okay, tell me about your childhood. Here's my childhood. Okay, let's try this experiment. Go back before your childhood. Okay, like 20 years back. What's happening? Well, I'm on a ship. I'm in my barracks. Wait, what? And so he says, okay, what's happening? He says, oh, we're in transport right now. We have to go to another planet. Okay. So what else is happening? And he proceeds to tell the story how he was a soldier in an alien army, off-world, way off-world, apparently like other side of the galaxy, still this galaxy, but other side of the galaxy from Earth, and there was a conflict, like a war brewing, and or a war in actuality, and he's a frontline trooper, like for lack of a better term, a space marine, and he describes his weapon, which is basically, it kind of looked like a minigun from what he described and from what I gathered, but it didn't have the backpack and the big coil for the bullets to travel down and all that fun stuff. Yeah, I'm ex-military. I'm Air Force, though, so I never dealt with miniguns, and I probably used a lot of bad terminology there. My apologies to all you aficionados on the subject. But, the feed thing is what I'm trying to say. But anyway, it was just the tube, for lack of a better term, and a handle with a little trigger on it, on the button, on the thing, and he held it like this and does thing. And he says it was a beam, and he called it a force beam. And sorry, I got caught up in the chat here over here. Anyway, a force beam. He says basically whatever I aimed at disappeared or got blown away. So it was both. It not only atomized what was in front of it, it just kind of pushed it away too. Well, and man, that is some wicked technology. And he says, well, how did it work? I said, I don't know. I'm a soldier. I'm not a tech. That's a neat answer. So the hypnotherapist keeps prying into his past military career. And he says, okay, so let's advance a little bit. Who's in your crew? He says, I'm on lots of people, and I'm on the ship of about 2,000. Okay. And then he's asked, and are they all like you? No, there's various types of jobs and this hypnotherapist says, okay, no, I mean, like, what species are you compared to the others? And he says, well, I'm humanoid, human-like, pretty close to human. One thing about that, the entire thing, he does not give the name of the races he's experienced with. So he goes on to say, it's like, he doesn't say this, I'm paraphrasing. Basically, he says it's kind of the Star Wars Cantina vibe. Lots of different alien races serving on one ship. Kind of cool. But getting back to this guy's story, he says, he's asked, okay, so what happens at the tail end of your life? Do you die? Or he said, and the guy says something very interesting. This is where the story really takes a bizarre freaking turn, okay? And really kind of actually confirms, without confirming, a lot of Native American stories and other ancient cultures, stories of visitors who have done this. And let me tell you, he says, no, it was time for my retirement. I was getting older, and I had an option. I can re-up, and they move my consciousness into a new body. Okay. And the therapist is kind of in this loop of, just trying to get him to tell the story, but, he's processing at the same time. And so the therapist says, yeah, please go ahead. And he says, yeah. So I have a few options. I can get put into a new body and re-up. That's another 100 years. I really don't want to do this anymore. Okay. And, or I can be retired. Okay, great. Where are you going to go for your retirement? He says, well, we knew about Earth, and there was an opportunity to go to Earth. And so I opted for that. It was kind of out of the way. No one would really bug us. We weren't on anyone else. Earth isn't really on anyone else's radar as far as being a threat, so there's not a lot of problems with Earth. Mind you, when this takes place, the event I'm about to describe to you takes place in 1920, way before nuclear development, and we were a problem for some people. But I digress. Let me get back to my story. So he says he opts for Earth, and he's brought to the planet, and he remembers being transported down, for lack of a better term, beamed down, but it's more instantaneous, kind of like it's like a blank, suddenly you're there. And before him is this 3-year-old boy who's just kind of toddling along, and it's somewhere way out in the forest, it's like a campground, but it's out there, and I don't know where exactly. But he says he distinctly remembers looking at himself as a person from the boy's perspective, and then he blinks, and the soldier he perceives is suddenly gone. And now his perception is from the 3-year-old's perception. And suddenly the mind of the 3-year-old kind of takes him over. And he's a 3-year-old. And he's hanging out with his parents. And they're calling for him. And he runs over to them. And that's kind of where the last remnants of the soldier kind of die off. So, yeah. That's that story. So he remembers his childhood starting really at 3. Now, a lot of us can make that claim because a lot of us don't remember what ages, 0 to 2. Some of us do, some of us don't. But it's that type of thing that makes you think, okay, this could have been a creative endeavor brought up through hypnotherapy, giving this guy free reign to just kind of make up his own story. But I see we have some questions. So let's see if we can answer some of these questions together, because I guarantee I have the exact same questions to one degree or another. So it's open for questions as of right now. This turned into an open mic episode because Joe never showed up, but that's okay. So, Woo Riders says he has a question or two. So please, Woo Rider, present those questions. I'll continue to babble a bit more until I see those pop up. But my question, okay, so there's my question in a nutshell. These various regressions, are they, or could they, because there's various techniques used to verify certain truths, are these absolute truths? Or are we looking at some of the most creative stuff in the world? Now, I will point out that UFOs weren't really in the mainstream one way or another, except for Roswell in the case of Betty and Barney Hill. And even then, I think we're looking at kind of a really blinking, you missed it, kind of news sensation. And, Betty and Barney Hill had their own lives. And then we take this Space Marine guy, who's, for lack of a better term, reincarnated, or slipped into the mind of this 3-year-old, where he retired, which is crazy. That's a great story if it's true. It's a great story if it's not true. But, again, this is from a hypnotherapist's, notes. in a book of other similar stories. Some of them were horrifying, by the way, but I won't get into that just yet. Can we rely on what the hypnotherapist dug out of their clients? Can we call into question the validity of their experiences? Are they consistent? In a lot of cases, yes, they are. They've been asked the same questions over and over, and they're very consistent. Very consistent. Like I think 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, however it is you want to look at it. So, consistency-wise, for the most part, yes. Have them been people that have made this stuff up and have that kind of brain that just kind of can generate stuff? Yeah, absolutely. And, the therapists have gone 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 100 sessions in and finally realized, oh, okay, this person's making this up because of this, that, and the other thing. And is it because they're mentally damaged or whatever? I mean, that could be a factor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I and all that fun stuff. Woo Writer's initial question, I'll put it up here. I think I talked to put this on there. Sherry's doing volunteer work in an animal shelter and listening to me. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. But Woo Writer's question is, how much stock do I put in hypnosis? That's kind of been my problem. I was at one point put into a light trance-like state. Would I call it hypnosis? No. Hypnosis leaves you open to more experiences and outside influence. And I guess that's also my question. Are these therapists putting words into their clients' mouths, potentially? Are they putting the narrative together because the client says, I don't know about this? And the therapist could ask, could it be? Which they're not really supposed to do. And they're supposed to move on to the next question or step or whatever. But, I mean, it does happen where therapists, the hypno stuff, hypnotherapy, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. But they ask the question, could it be this, that, and the other thing? And it does influence the answer. That has been documented as being the case in a number of stories. Now, Joe says his technique is more, I guess, has a proven against that. Not proven against that. I can't. He has a methodology that keeps that from being the case. He knows about what state these people are in by asking them control questions. And all that fun stuff. But again, he's not here to answer that, so I have to go on my Swiss cheese memory and try and realize this stuff. So I am going to invite all of you to go out and do your own research on this, and perhaps when we come back next week, you can say, hey, Tim, this is what I figured out. And I'd be more happy to read that on the air. In the meantime, since we have a moment, let's take a quick 90-second break for station identification and a couple of other things. Okay, see you in 90 seconds. This is the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 in the Gulf Coast. UPRN talkradio.com. Esoteric programming at its finest.
Symbol, the trident, gifted to us by the priests of Troy Xenos centuries ago when one of the first monster hunting teams out of Corinth battled a contingent of Vrykolakas that had infested their temple. After the victory over the monsters, the head priest declared, "You are 3 lances acting as one, not unlike Poseidon's mighty trident of light. That would become our name, the Trident of Light. For the good we did, and still do, against the dark evils of this world.
Available at Amazon Books.
Follow us on Instagram at paranormal.insight. Stay informed on upcoming shows, ask questions, and see what chilling paranormal stories we're following. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube at paranormal_insight. Click the live tab to see our latest videos. Hello and welcome back. My name is Tim Sudano. This is Paranormal Insight, and we're talking about hypnoregression, aliens, and the UFO phenomenon. And we have... Okay. We have another question. Okay. And thank you, Heidi, for welcoming me back. She's so sweet. Woo Writer's question, and DG, I'm sorry. I'm having a very hard time reading all this stuff. So you're Woo Writers for right now. I'm sorry, sir. Or dude, or lady. I don't know what your sex is. Writers. So, anyway, the question: what do you believe are NHI intentions on coming to Earth? That's non-human intelligences, for those of you who don't know. And why are NHI abducting people? Very good question. That is a great Joe question, and I wish he were here. But he has failed to show up. I hope he's okay. Again, if anyone has any way to reach out to Joe super quick and get an answer, light a fire from the get on the air, please do so. If not, don't worry about it. I'm sure he's okay. But he has been a little incommunicado lately. But I digress. Let's answer Woo Writer's question. I'm going to keep it up there for everyone who's watching. So, what do I believe that what are the NHI intentions? That's a really good question. And you can look at it from various different perspectives. Let's start with ancient astronaut theory perspective. If we pay attention to Zecharia Sitchin and his disciples, all the way down to Billy Carson, and there's a few newer ones popping up right now, we're looking at least according to that narrative, we are a seeded race, a race created for a very specific purpose. Oh my gosh, I'm sure that was involved, but a very specific purpose, and that was to, well, a few things. We're miners apparently, and they like gold. That one always struck me as weird, but okay, I guess if it says so in Samaria writing, I have to take it at face value, at least for now. And then, according to Joe, there was a little bit of an uprising. Actually, Sitchin, right, and all the way through Carson speak to this, that there was an uprising of some sort. And we rebelled and became our own people and kicked the aliens off the planet or something like that. I don't know how a bunch of cave people did that. Or, people who were, even if they were modern humans, as we are today, way, way back then, I don't know how we achieved that unless we were again, if we were more modern humans like we are today, way, way back then, we just observed the buttons they hit on their machines. Again, I couldn't even begin to imagine what was going on. It's like, yeah, you know what? I can knock your ship out of the sky. Beep, see, I did it. Boom. Oh, okay. Well, these little monkey guys are serious. We better bug out. And then they, again, if you follow the basic ancient astronaut theory timeline, they were the first civilizations, including, to one degree or another, the Atlanteans, the Tartarians, and the Lemurians. But we have a few complications with all that, in that, with very few exceptions. We have almost no physical history to back that up. I mean, maybe it's buried too deep for us to find. I mean, we're finding bells and they say it's from Tartaria, but I mean, who knows? Honestly. Now let's take this from another perspective. If we have these non-human intelligences coming from distant stars and they seeded us here, I'm sorry, I'm back on alien stuff, on the ancient alien theory. They're probably coming back to check up on us, see where we're at. Oh gosh, they have nuclear weapons now. Oh, they keep fighting each other. What's happened to our babies? And maybe there's a concern. Why are they abducting us? Again, through ancient astronaut theory perspective. Just to kind of see where we're at. And maybe they're specifically drawn to specific bloodlines, as has been more recently reported, because those are the bloodlines that they initially created. And then there were these mutations throughout the thousands of years since they were here last, if they ever left, because the argument has been made, we've been seeing these UFO things since time immemorial. I mean, way back. I mean, the Romans reported things. And interestingly, the Roman ones were kind of like, it was almost like a missile defense system. There's one story in a town outside of Rome in the ancient Roman days where the ground opens up in the perfect circle, in that what they describe as a beam shoots off and knocks something out of the sky. So, leftover defense system, maybe. We also have those big bell towers in Siberia. Those two, they kind of looked like observatories, but there were two of them. They're right next to each other, and they eventually sank into this lake, which is not really a lake. All the water is horribly poisoned, very corrosive, and highly irradiated. It's radioactive, and it's suspected that that was also a defense system left over from whenever. So that's one perspective. Let's look at the interdimensional perspective. Hey, look, we have new technology. We can hop into the dimension next door. Oh my God, look what these human beings are doing. They're weird, but they're funny, but they're scary, but whatever. And they're going to continue to interact with us to one degree or another at that level. Let's abduct them. Let's do tests on them. Let's see how close they are to our physiology, and so on and so forth. So it's basic curiosity and ongoing science experiment and or monitoring. Like we tag wild animals in our world all the time. So let's check in on Shark 427 and see how they're doing. Same basic idea. Let's look at it from the perspective of I just had it. Time traveler. That's what it was. Now, that's been described as well. That all these alien beings are actually us, especially the Greys. They're us, like hundreds and thousands of generations ahead. Or they moved to a different planet and mutations occurred quicker within, say, 5 or 6 generations. And like if we go back to Mars, for example, numerous projections have said that our physiology will very closely resemble the Greys. Very closely. And it's scary. I mean, some of these projections. And they're computer models and, this, that, and the other thing. So, your perspective, again, and you want to see, okay, so where were we back then compared to where we are now? If you're a time traveler, you're going to want to have that experience and, do those experiments and check in and see where we could have gone wrong, could have gone right, could have gone up, down, left, center, whatever. Yeah, that's entirely possible. Now, I see Woo Writers has his own take, and let's take a look at those. I believe humanity has had, Woo Writers writes, has had many iterations of society. I agree with that theory. We're talking Atlanteans, Tartarians, Lemurians, and all those guys. And then we've gotten to a point where we are today, technologically wise and beyond, especially if the Earth is billions of years old. I can see that. I can see that. He continues, and I believe past civilizations of humanity are already traveling throughout the galaxies and are living on other habitable planets. Entirely possible. I wouldn't deny that whatsoever. I'd like to see the tablet. I'd like to see the computer chip, for crying out loud. That says, whatever. Whether it's, I mean, even if they had something like that, or a crystal, whatever, like in Superman, the crystals carry different programs and stuff. Show me, that's the only thing I'm lacking to confirm that. And as a paranormal investigator, chiefly doing a podcast about the paranormal and UFOs and stuff like that, I would love to have the tablet, the crystal, the computer chip, whatever it is, that says, oh, by the way, umpteen thousand years ago, this planet's awesome, but there's more planets out there. Let's go. We're going to leave. We're going to check them out. So, does your theory hold water? Absolutely. Especially past societies of humankind were technologically capable of leaving the world. In the billions and billions of years that this planet has been around, that's entirely possible, with a few varying exceptions that may or may not count. If you go Darwinism, we came from monkeys, yada, yada, yada. If you go ancient astronaut theories, we were made pretty much like we are right now. And we're capable of taking off in our perhaps captured starships that we understood because we watched. We saw what buttons they hit and said, you know what? That's mine now. We're going to explore the stars. And maybe there's a race of humans out there that did that. There are also reports, big underline on reports, that human abductees who never returned were colonized elsewhere in the galaxy. There's a specific story about, and I think it happened in the 60s, where this man and his family are taken aboard a gigantic ship. I mean, from a scout, mind you. It was not too dissimilar to what my little dream UFO looked like. And I'll show you what that looked like real quick. So it looked something like this, but it took you up to a gigantic mothership. And these guys report that when they get there, humans, nothing but humans, pure humans, just all the way, and they get to talking to them. They say, where are you from? You look just like us. I say, oh, originally we were from here, but we were taken. And similar to what happened, according to ancient astronaut theory, there was an uprising, but on a different planet. They took over the technology, made it their own, yada, 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 to borrow from Seinfeld. And it is, that's also a distinct possibility about what's going on. Maybe there are tribes of humans out there already because they were abducted, rose up, took over, and so forth. There's still a fourth theory out there, and Woo Writers, I will get to your remaining reason because I think it will tie into what I'm saying in a moment. Fourth thing is we were already around, but on a different world. A true home world that isn't Earth. And we either took over or escaped, something similar to what we've been talking about. And again, this is also according to reports that we escaped something like the Leo system or something like that. That's a blind guess, really faded recollection on my part. Don't quote me, but they steal a bunch of ships and leapfrog from habitable world to habitable world, and it is kind of a rough slog going along because these habitable worlds already have other indigenous people on them. When they finally get to our solar system, so the story goes, we first settled on Mars, but Mars is hit with that massive impact. All you have to do is look at Valles Marineris, and it pushed half the mantle up into the almost the stratosphere of the planet, where Olympus Mons, the biggest volcano ever in our solar system. Well, that's not entirely true, but it's huge. It takes up takes a fair chunk of the planet. It's miles wide. Blew out the atmosphere on Mars, and we had to escape again. And the next habitable world that was relatively untouched was Earth. And here we are. Maybe different tribes pop up. That's where Atlantis, Lemuria, Tartaria, and various others in early history, get their start. So that's four different theories there for you to digest and play with. And let's look at Ryder's final thing. Okay, sorry, I called up the wrong one. Here's another reason why the global cabal. Oh, okay, we're still doing stuff here. Okay, here's another reason why the global cabal is what I call them, would intentionally suppress the public and hide our true history so they can continue the power and control of society. Well, that's entirely possible. That's more of a socio-political thing, not really the vibe of our show, but I will continue to read on what you say. We find out all the time we've been lied to. Very true. Countless times throughout history, and suppression of the dumbing down of humanity is evident in the history books and today. You're not wrong, sir. I will say that. You're not wrong. If you want to go into the sociopolitical aspect, I will very, very briefly. That those who, the bloodlines, the elites, are the keepers of this knowledge. That's a theory. Not mine either. It's pretty widespread across, well, for a while now, for at least the last couple, 300 years. We've had this elite faction that has their bloodlines and all that fun stuff. And they don't really let anyone else into playing their playground. And they kind of end up being rulers and emperors and kings and queens and presidents and what have you throughout time. In more recent history, in the sense like in the last 5,000, 6,000, 7, even 10,000 years. I mean, the Sumerians had their kings and all that fun stuff. And they keep going back to Sumeria because that was the first major civilization in recent documentation anyway. That's enough to say that Lemuria, Atlantis, and Tartaria didn't have their kings and queens and universes and such. But if you're going to go that route, I would say you have a point, but it would be these elites that hold on to this knowledge and all that fun stuff, and all that. And apparently, Wu wasn't quite finished. Wu writers. Let's see what he has to say here. To finish, I believe that the global cabal could very well be working with nefarious non-human intelligences, something like similar to They or They Live movie. Yes, possible. Entirely possible. I would submit, however, that if that is the case, I would like you to take a quick step back as a fifth theory. Wow, I can't. A fifth theory presents itself. That the gods of old were not alien creatures, as Zachariah Stitchin and the guy who wrote Chariots of the Gods says, also ancient astronaut theorist. But perhaps these were left over, and this has been explored, these were leftover remnants of those ancient societies, Lemuria, Tartaria, Atlantis, that were trying so hard to hang on to their power that they created these mythologies around themselves, and they had access to those ancient weapons and technologies. And kind of created their own myths, basically. That's a fifth theory. Let's talk to Miss Tessa Marie. Tessa, thank you so much for being on the show and joining the chat. She has a question here or a statement. I've heard that humans get abducted because our DNA is easy for the aliens to manipulate. Because their race is going extinct. Yeah, we've all heard that one before, and they need our DNA to make hybrids so their species can survive. I paraphrased that last bit there. Sorry, Tessa. Yeah, that's an old story. Well, not too old, but that has been passed around quite a bit. If you talk to Joe about it, Joe could tell you about it if you were here. But Joe Montaldo would say something to the effect of that. Is it our DNA or is it our blood type specific DNA? Throughout our experience and documentation of this phenomenon of alien abduction, we have discovered that certain blood types are favored. Certain bloodlines are favored. And it's not the elitists either, because our own Michelle Desrochers is an abduction person. Gosh, abductee. God, I cannot talk today. Or any other time I do this show, it seems. But she's an abductee. She's had tons of abductees on her show. I have not had that bestowed upon me yet, but I hope to in the future because I have lots of questions if they could answer them. But again, back to Joe Montaldo's experience, he is ICAR and he collects all these stories. He has these abductees as a network globally, and he actually has this thing where he puts out questions. It's like, ask this question next time you're abducted. And it's a little mantra they have to do every night until the abduction happens, and then they come back. They're hypno-regressed and say, oh yeah, here's the answer. And they all give the exact same answer without networking, which is really cool. So I tend to take Joe's reporting as nearly, if not completely, foolproof. I would be a fool if I said completely, only because I wasn't there myself as an investigator. Not to crap all over Joe's credibility, because I do believe what he reports to be exceptionally accurate. I didn't know you guys knew each other, so I'm reading the chat and they go, hey guys, how's it going? I haven't talked to you in forever. It's like, wow, you guys network quite a bit. That's cool. Maybe I should join the chats on other shows and so I can get to know you folks better too. But let's get back to our core thing. Where does hypno-regression really come into all this? How are we getting these stories? Well, I just said so. And only news I trust is on UPR. Heidi, you're awesome. So Joe actually went into this a little bit on last show, and it speaks to what I just said, that he has this network of abductees globally that he reaches out to, and he puts questions out. So he's been getting all this information back, and especially when it matches up. And having a network like that available to us here on the UPRN is invaluable, and he's gracious enough to share that information with us. Yes, and we actually talked about blood a little bit, so let me share that. Tessa says I have Rh negative, O negative blood type, so does my mom, and she's pretty sure she's been abducted. I pray it doesn't happen to me. Well, Miss Tessa, I would, I don't know, if you're afraid of that sort of thing, I don't want to happen to you either. I think that's a primal fear for a lot of humans. None of us like being captured. None of us like being manipulated. And none of us like having our will taken away. So I can understand the fear. For the sci-fi geek like me, I think I'd be okay with it as long as they weren't too invasive. Yeah, Heidi puts it well, don't fear the unknown. But I mean, it really, it's all about the person and the individual. If you have that thing and you think you have been abducted, or your mom has, I hate to say this, and this Joe will back me up with this if he were here, but there's a very real possibility you have been abducted in the past, if not are still being abducted regularly, because your mom is, unless there was enough of a, forget the term, mutation in your blood work that made you less interesting to our alien friends. So if you don't want to be abducted, that's interesting you say that, because if you put the intention out there that you do not take me, from what Joe has relayed to me and others have relayed to me on the subject of abduction, they will more or less listen to you, which is kind of cool. I mean, Joe said I am likely an abductee, even though I don't know it. I mean, short of my dream. But if I'm just a dream, I mean, if it's any sort of recall of an abduction, that's a weird one. And there's also something to be something else to be considered. If these alien abductions are even alien abductions, there's a very real possibility that they could be military abductions, because, as we learned from Bob Lazar, they have their ships, and they've been retrofitting their technology, and we have the TR-31B, or whatever it's called, that triangular ship, a craft, I'll say, that's more than capable of space flight, and can whip around the world at Mach 10, or whatever it is, and has most of the abilities that their alien counterparts do. So if we have access to that technology, nothing's really stopping them from doing doing the abduction scenario. And it's worth saying that, since humans by and large are not telepathic, they will not receive that intention necessarily. So, not to scare you, Tessa, not at all. But I would say, yeah. Sorry, I just read something in Heidi's thing. I'll share that in a second, Heidi, if it's okay. I will say that, do keep it in your head. If you have a nightly, for lack of a better term, mantra, Woo Riders, you're awesome. Thanks, man. I'll share that in a second, too. Yeah, Tommy's the best. I will say, definitely kind of do that nightly mantra. It's like, I don't want to be here. I do not want to be here. I do not want to be able to take me off the list. Just a little one. And don't freak out about it. If you get taken 9 times out of 10, you're not going to remember it anyway. So don't let it affect you, Tessa, honestly. It might be worth being hypnoregressed to see if you are even being abducted. Again, it does follow bloodlines and family lines and stuff like that, especially parent to child. So it's a very real possibility, but not entirely out of the realm to say, well, nope, we already have the mother, we don't need the daughter. So who knows? Tessa, you're good. You're all good. I will say do not panic, ultimately. All right, so let me take Tessa's question off, and let's go quickly to Heidi. And first off, hi, little Cam51. I'm so happy to have you here in the chat and on watching the show and all that. Heidi says, Michelle says, I am an experiencer and have never thought of myself, but looking back in but looking back, I see, we're missing a comma. What I thought has been paranormal could very well be contact. That's not entirely out of the realm of possibility. There's a lot of correlations between paranormal experiences like ghosts and poltergeists and the like, and alien activity. A lot of it. However, I will put this out there. When it comes to ghosts and poltergeists and stuff like that, and it happens to you, like it's happened to me several times throughout my career as an investigator, you will witness it. You'll see it. You'll hear it. You'll record it, hopefully, on voice recorder, video camera, whatever. With regard to alien abduction, usually, they'll scramble video and audio signals, and you won't be able to do a live recording of them because they'll just take you without the device. So I would say those are the two differences. One, you are very conscious and aware of what's happening. The other, being the alien abduction, it largely happens without your knowing it, and at least initially. Miss Tessa has a follow-up. That's interesting, you said, about putting in the intention out there, because I grew up in a haunted house. Oh, very nice. Yeah, that's always fun. And every night I would say, please don't let me see you. And you never saw anything. Well, yeah, these things, listen, man. I mean, it's all about what you do put out there. It's amazing that a lot of people don't really give intention and thing, a lot of credibility, because it really does have a lot of power. I mean, the human being, the human us, we're awesome. That sounds so conceited, but as a race, believe it or not, the human being is really an awesome, powerful entity being in and of itself. Not to talk about my own race in the third person, but I just did. So yeah, our intention holds a lot of power, believe it or not. Now, you could focus and intently say, I'm going to win the lottery. But there's also an odd little unspoken rule that has been more or less recently brought to the forefront. And that is, you must be in service to others to get what you want. That's a weird way to put it. You must be in service to others to get what you want. Service to self doesn't always work out. That means you're a selfish little bad me. And, I don't think anyone here really falls into that category. So it's interesting. You say, I want to win the lottery. I want to win the lottery so I can help the world. Ah, there we go. That's a better way to do it. So I might try that myself today. I just never putting it into practice until just now. But I'm glad. See, your intention does have power. And Sherry says, I have seen a craft or something, but don't remember ever being taken. I've seen craft as well, but I don't even come close to remember to being taken. Joe says it's a possibility, but with regard to my dream, he says, if anything, it was a military abduction, given that I saw robots or, craft with cameras and other electronic devices on them. Interesting, Sherry. Thanks for sharing that. And then Heidi says, oh my gosh, she went on for a bit. A question I've been wanting to ask. Have you found anyone to be a frequency blocker? Oh, that's a great question. And we're kind of going off topic, but hey, you know what? It's okay because I ran out of stuff to talk about anyway, especially without Joe here. So let's talk about frequency blockers. They shut down technology and cameras. I knew a guy. He would have to get a new computer every year or two because his own electromagnetic presence would short out the machines. Everything. Remote controls for his TV. He had to get new ones like every 6 months or something like that because he just had that presence. He was a bigger dude. He was like 6'5". I find mostly, not entirely, don't quote me on this, but I mean, my observation is a lot of larger people, big people, like tall dudes or ladies even, who are just, not within the average realm of height, it's like 6'5" and up, tend to have that ability, or I don't know. Yeah, okay, we'll call it an ability that they'll short out electronics. Isn't that fascinating? It's not fascinating. Okay, let's see. There's more stuff. Oh gosh. I have seen craft too. Never thought of being abducted. Very plausible. I have. Okay. This is a weird. Intentions beyond you. Okay. Heidi's just agreeing with me on a bunch of stuff. Heidi has also seen craft. I'll put that up real quick, Heidi. But never thought of being abducted. But it's very plausible that I have. Well, it's an open way to look at it. That's pretty cool. Yes, very plausible. Very plausible. The funny thing is, with one or two very rare exceptions, I'm one of the few people in my family who's really into this paranormal, supernatural stuff. Everyone else is really laid back, blue collar, that type of thing, for the most part. Not everyone, but for the most part. And most, if not all of them, are kind of, they'll call something like this, like the topics here on the UPRN, woo-woo. Which I always found hilarious in and of itself as a word. But I digress. Heidi shares a thing where, I have thought of myself in the past years when technology will glitch out around me, but there's a guy that I believe is a hybrid that might intentionally shut tech down. Really? Like, is he a neighbor or something? Or that's curious. Woo-woo is a thing. I just find the term kind of silly. We're talking about something way more than just, in my personal estimation, I'm sure yours as well, otherwise you wouldn't be here, way more than just flights of fancy, or fantasy. Too many people have come forward with everything across the spectrum in the paranormal world, saying that this has happened to me, and others have corroborated it, and so others around the other side of the globe have said, yep, that happened to me too. And I give you the date and time, and here's the guy's picture, or whatever. So it's interesting. Miss Tessa has something more to say. When my mom and I go shopping together, I'd say like 70% of the time, she says, something goes wrong with the cash register and the transaction. It happens so much we laugh about it. We think it's our blood. Possibly. If your blood's especially iron rich, I think O is iron rich compared to most blood types. That's why it's such a good donor that it can go to, or is it O negative? That's a good donor. Someone better check me on that. But I think that's why you have a little more iron or something like that in your blood, I think. I was pre-med a gazillion years ago, and I barely made it for the chem classes. That's it. She's positive. O positive. I think that's the universal donor too. Streetlights get affected, she says, especially when my daughter and I, walk underneath them. Also no blood type. Well, that makes sense. Oh, all that O negative. Oh, she is O negative. Okay, so O type in general. Okay, I get you. Oh, interesting. So that's entirely possible. If you have that O type, I think you have a little more iron than most folks. And so you might be a little more electromagnetically conductive, so to speak. So you'll probably short stuff out. So keep an eye on your computers. Touch them as little as possible. I joke. I tease. Heidi goes on to tell us about her, how did she put it? Let's see. Yeah. How'd she put it? Oh, the man she thinks is a hybrid. She goes on to say, he just showed up as a regional property manager here where I live. I Googled him and can't find him anywhere. Ooh, okay. And he is a strange ranger. A weird vibe. And I've noticed him I have no store cams shut down with him, I guess, nearby. Yeah. And Miss Tessa confirmed that she can give her O blood to anybody. Good to know. That's great. So going back to Heidi's thing, that's interesting. And are these light people you see on camera? Well, I guess if he shorts them out, the answer is no. I was wondering if there's any correlation between their appearance and his appearance. Heidi, let me know about that. That's very fascinating to me. I'm going to do an online investigation. That's kind of cool. Pardon my drinking. It's water. Just P.S. Let us also consider. Well, I lost my place here. Here she is. No, he's real and in the physical. I understand. No, I get that part. Heidi, my question was, when the shimmery, glowy people, show up on camera, is there a correlation between them showing up and him showing up? Not whether he's tangible or not. I'm just wondering if there's a correlation between the two different types of activities. Or, not activities, presences. Yeah, okay, I'll stick with that. I probably misspoke on what I was trying to say there. If you get confused, just ask me a question. Let's also consider... Oh, oops, sorry. No, I've noticed. Okay, gotcha. She says no. Heidi says no, that's not what's happening. No direct correlation, anyway. How about the opposite of a correlation? They show up and 5 months or whatever it is later, he shows up. Just curious. Just to do a comparison. Let's see here. You guys, let me briefly say. Okay, you've only seen the light beams a few times, ID. Okay, good stuff. Let's briefly go back to Woo Riders. You found me through Tommy Cullum. Yeah, Tommy Cullum. He's the best. I like Tommy. He's a good fellow. I've been on his show a couple of times. He's been on mine. We always have a good time. We're part of a collective of podcasters called the Fantastic Five. You won't be able to find us. There's no website on it. Don't worry about that. This is what we call ourselves. Just kind of happened. And we're not being conceited. It just was a fun nickname. I even did a show on it once called the Fantastic Four-Fifths, because only one of us got hit by a storm at the last minute and got knocked off the air. But anyway, so yeah, Tommy's part of our Fantastic Five. He's a hoot, and he has some interesting guests on too. He's really just out there and say, "I like to be on your show," or he's inviting people to be on the show. Yeah, he's got a heck of a following. He does 2 or 3 shows a week. I could barely get this one put together, man. He's a dynamo when it comes to this stuff, and he's so interested. He's had so many personal experiences too. He's fantastic. He's a good one for stories. I think my favorite story of Tommy's is when he ran into what I determined to be a kitsune, mythical creature from either. Well, it depends. It's kitsu in China and kitsune in Japan. The multi-tailed fox that is often reported to transform into a woman. And I don't mean like werewolf style, or at least the way we depicted movies. It's painful and prolonged transformation. It's like, you're a fox, you're a human. You're a fox, you're a human. Instantaneous, a shapeshifter, if you will. And he says he saw this elderly lady just kind of shuffling along one night, and she's going to the bus stop, and I guess the bus stop has a back on it. where the bench is, and like a little covered bench area, and she goes behind it, and out the other side, a fox full on jumps out in the road, stops, looks at him, and trots on to the forest. And he went over there, and he looked for that lady. Was nowhere to be seen. So I think very, very possible Tommy saw a shapeshifter of some sort. Could have been spiritual. I don't know. That's a weird thing to be showing off, though. It could be a kitsune, and that could lend to a verification of sorts. I mean, one eyewitness, I grant you, but of the kitsune legend, where and it was a regular fox, and didn't have multiple tails or anything. So who knows where that part came from? But it's intriguing to me. So yeah, I think Tommy saw a kitsune, and he's seen that same fox running around too. He says, I followed it once. It stayed a fox, but it kept looking at me. It's like, well, you were following it, Tommy. Yeah, I keep looking at you. Says, fair point. And he says, I really wanted her to change back to the old lady I saw, the elder lady he saw. It's like, I get it. But these strange creatures don't always perform the way we want them to. Anyway, back to it. And once again, welcome to the show. Pardon me. Woo Writers, thank you for joining us. One day, little Cam, I just saw this. Sorry, I was scrolling through the chat. One day I'll make a website of all the channels we watch and list them there. I'd be okay with that. I'd love to join that society. That'd be a little online society. That'd be really cool. Let me throw this out there as well. If you want to join us in the chat at the last 15 minutes of the show, I should have done this at the beginning. You may find us at www.youtube.com/paranormal_insight/stream. Actually, that might be streams. Whatever the live channel is. If we're there, you just click on the live channel and you'll see the show in progress. You can join us in the chat. It'll be a lot of fun. And we'd love to have you here. So, let me also put out another thing. I'll keep that going for a second. I am looking for guests for the next few weeks. I'm going to be on a show called SIPA Canada. Man, that guy's going to kill me for getting that wrong. But anyway, so I'll be on that show. It's not part of the UPR network that I'm aware of. I don't think it is. And I'll be on that show. It'll be 1 hour. Then that person will be on my show for 2 hours in the following week. So I go on his show, I think, August 7th. Oh, man. I wasn't prepared to talk about this. I don't have my notes. So I'll say August 7th, and then he'll be on mine the following Thursday, I think. It may be a pre-record. I can't recall at this moment. So that's later. That's the early part of August. But if you want to be a guest on the show, I have a few more Thursdays available until that happens. And I would love to have you on the show if you think you have a story that's worth telling for 2 hours. And you have a bunch of experiences you want to, tell us about. That'd be great. Heidi, for example. I'd love to have you on the show. Pretty much every single one of you have some fantastic experiences from what I can glean. And I'd love to have any of you guys in the chat on the show. That'd be a lot of fun. Let me ask if there are any more questions regarding, well, whatever, really. We kind of drifted from hypno-regression into personal experiences. Oh, Heidi said she'd do it someday. Well, I don't know. Where are we here? We're on the 17th? I got the 24th and the 31st available. Believe it or not. Actually, the 24th might be taken, but 31st for sure. Let me know. It would be live. I'd prefer it if you were on camera. It would be in this time slot. And you seem to be available, so. All right. You can contact me about that. Let me tell you where to find me, by the way. I am at paranormal.insight. I should put this on a banner. In fact, I shall. But I am at, no, I'm not. Oh, that's not it. Paranormal, as I type it in, .insight, .podcast, longest email ever. And I can't spell it correctly, at gmail.com. Paranormal.insight. Did I do it right? Here we go. I'm not going to scroll it. Okay, there it is, right there. That's the email, paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to be on the show, please send me a quick email saying, hey, I'd like to be on the show. And we'll get you on the show. I had to turn someone down recently, though, because it was like an overplayed topic. So let me tell you what I'd like to talk about. I like to talk about hauntings. I like to talk about UFOs and aliens. I love to talk about, well, Bigfoot. So if you have any of those major things happening to you, that's fine. So Heidi, I guess we'd mostly talk about your spiritual experiences, for example. And it doesn't have to be limited to that. It could be everything you've experienced in the paranormal realm. And she has some video clips she's going to send me. That'd be super cool. I'd love to do that. Would be really cool, actually. That'd be a great way to do the show. But no pressure, Heidi. You tell me when you're available. If you can do the 31st, I'll take you up on it. And if the rest of you out there in chat and or just watching, you now know how to reach me directly. I think I put 2 periods on there. No, I sure didn't. Okay, I did it right. I need new glasses. There we go. But I digress. We have 10 minutes left. Do we have any further questions out there in chat world? I felt energy my entire life. Really? Heidi makes an interesting thing. I kind of want to talk about it a little bit. She says, I have felt energy my entire life. And she laughs about it, but that's pretty cool. Now, with me, with regarding my UFO experience, when, let me show you a little picture here. When this little guy in the window over here, when he, in the dream when he, in the dream when he panned his light and opened the curtain, I felt that push of electromagnetic energy. Is that what you're referring to? Because I'm very sensitive to electromagnetic fields and what have you. And I can literally feel. I remember an investigation where this house was rebuilt by an amateur, and they kind of got the wiring a little bit jumbled. And there was a moment where we were in the basement, and the power assembly was above us at that point. And for me, it was like, low-hanging branch or something. I had to really duck under it physically because I could physically feel the pressure of the electromagnetic field. Heidi, could you... Good. Heidi just said something about sharing a dream. I guess you did that in the chat and I failed to realize it. I may ask you to recount that, please. That'd be fantastic. But anyway, so I guess that's my question. Heidi, when you say you feel energy, not that we need to get it out of the way now, we can save it for the show. I don't know, but give me a yes or no. Do you feel the energy like that, or it's just you're sensing presences in the area? Like when the right people show up at your house, for example, do you feel them? Let me know. And I'll wait for her to respond in the interim. Yeah. So regarding all the questions I got in the chat, first off, thank you so much for posting your questions and talking about your concerns and what have you. I really do appreciate that. And I'm sure our audience finds it interesting as well. And it's nice that when we can all get together on a format like this and say, oh, that person's experiencing what I'm experiencing. That's fantastic. So if you do have a story and you want to share it, and you could talk about it for 2 hours, join me on Paranormal Insight. There's the email at the bottom, paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com. longest email ever. I really should have thought about that, but que sera. I'm going to take that off the screen now and take us back to the chat thingy. If you want to join us in the chat in the last 5 minutes, please do. I'd love to have you. Sherry says, I had a great show. Well, fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, Sherry, if you want to be on, come on down. It looks like we're wrapping up. We got 5 minutes left. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will cut out a pinch early unless you have another question. You got 30 seconds. I'm counting. If you don't have anything else, I couldn't tell you how much I appreciate you guys being here for me. I'm really hoping Joe's okay. He should have been here with me on this particular episode. He asked me to remind him, and I did. Maybe I did so too late. Who knows? But I want to thank you all once again in the chat. Those of you watching at home, those of you listening on the radio, thank you once again. My name is Tim Sudano. We will wrap it up. My name is Tim Sudano. This is Paranormal Insight, and I can't tell you how much fun I have doing this show. Thank you all for joining me, and we'll see you next time on Paranormal Insight. Bye-bye.
If you have a paranormal experience that you would like to discuss on the show, please email us at paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com. That's paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com.